Alright, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today, I'm going to go over the Ekitike Liverpool Isak kind of drama that's going on right now. So, today, Liverpool have made a formal approach for Ekitike with a bid around 80 million euros. Personal terms are expected not to be a problem. And does that mean that the Isak deal is completely off the table? I don't think so yet. I still think maybe Liverpool is trying to advance this deal similar to how Arsenal was doing with Sesko and Gyökeres, push both deals at once, see which one ends up making the most sense for them, which will probably end up being the Ekitike deal. The player really wants to go to Liverpool, but I wouldn't be expected if they still land Isak for probably in the region of 130, 140 plus million. And the only reason I think this deal is kind of being accelerated is because Isak hasn't outright said that, hey, I want to go to Liverpool, or hey, I want to stay at Newcastle. I still think he's kind of in a limbo. I think he's probably telling them, I'm willing to go, I'm willing to stay. If it makes sense for you guys to sell me, then sell me. I'll be more than happy to go, but I'll also be more than happy to stay and probably get sold. Next year, I think that's probably what they're telling him is, if you stay this year, we'll sell you next year. More buyers for you. We'll get you a cheaper price out of you, which a lot of people think, oh, Newcastle just cash in on the 120, 130 million for Isak that you can get right now. But I think when you look at it, and now that Ekitike has rejected them, you can't really get a striker in unless you push for a Sesko or try and swoop in on the Osimhen deal for a good price and one that's going to replace his quality, because I don't think there is a striker you can get that will replace his quality. And for Newcastle, that could mean Champions League, getting Champions League, or completely missing out on Europe entirely. I think there's that much of a gap in this team without Isak, even though you have players like Anthony Gordon, Bruno Guimaraes, you just brought in Alanga, and you have good fullbacks, one of the best midfields in the Prem. I still think that they could fall, if they lose Isak now, they could fall into that Villa realm where right now they're pushing more towards the Chelseas and the Arsenals, solidifying a spot in top four, which I think is way more important because of the revenue you get from the Champions League, and maybe a revenue from going further in the Champions League this year or picking up another cup this year. So I think you'd end up making more money long term if you kept Isak and sold him for 100 million or even as low as 80 million next year to a Barcelona or a Bayern, or even still a Liverpool, because I think Liverpool will still probably be interested in him even if they do get an Ekitike. But I think this is huge news. I expected the saga to kind of get dragged out a little bit more, but it hasn't. I think Liverpool do the right thing a lot of the time in the transfer window, and they just get their business done. They get it done quick. Oh, you don't want to come. Oh, you're not really giving us an answer. All right, we're going to push for another deal. And we're just going to get things done because they're already in preseason. They already played that game against Preston. I don't know if they're going on a tour, but they most likely are. And players are already back training and everything, and they're trying to get their squad solidified. They're trying to push for another title, a Champions League, and pick up a couple along the way, and really make this team one of the best teams in Europe, because they still have their core of Salah, VVD, Allison, who's kind of getting phased out of the squad with Mavrodici. I don't know how to say his name. The goalie coming in, who they bought last year but is now coming back in off his loan. They still have some youth, some players that have a lot of years in them, like McAllister, Gravenberch, Konate if they're able to hold on to him, Kirkes and Frimpong. And they can afford to take time on a player like Ekitike because he's young, he's raw, he still needs to find that cutting edge, but he can still create his own goal. He'll still probably bag you 15 to 20 goals in the Prem. And they have Mo Salah, who's their primary outlet for everything. He scores, he creates, he can beat people off the dribble. You know, he's still one of the best wingers in the world, probably the best right winger in the world. It's probably between him and Yamal. I still think he's better at the moment, but they're operating in a window where they could be one of the best teams they are one of the best teams in the world right now. And a year from now, it's not guaranteed that Salah will still be giving out the same output. VVD won't have taken a step back, and Allison might not even be in the squad next year. So I think it's a smart move to go for Isak. You know, he's still young too. He's not He's not 30 years old. He's 25. He's one of the best strikers in the world. But you can afford to take a step back and try and develop an Ekitike. Um, for Newcastle, I think it's unfortunate that Ekitike doesn't really want you. He doesn't want to, or he prefers Liverpool. I don't know if he said no outright to Newcastle. I'm sure if Liverpool pull out and get Isak, they'll swoop in and try and get a deal done. I heard Man United's also floating around this deal, but I doubt they get it done over Newcastle. I think Ekitike would still want to pick Newcastle over them, even though Manchester United still have a great pull. They're not just they finished 14th. They still won trophies. They still are going to compete. They've brought in players like Cunha and Mbeumo who will hopefully come in, who I'll talk about a little bit later. But I think Ekitike will end up at Liverpool. I think the Isak deal probably won't happen, which is what been my thoughts kind of the whole time, is that he'll go to Barca is probably my biggest target because of how old Lewandowski is. But Liverpool have the money. A lot of people have said, "Oh, Liverpool have the money to bring in both if Newcastle have the money to have them both operate together." And I don't really see that happening, but I wouldn't be surprised if it did happen. They seem like they're going all out, but I kind of expect Liverpool now to go with Ekitike and then push hard for a Rodrigo, and most likely sell Luis Diaz, who is looking to leave. Um, I think they're just trying to get the right price for him. He wants to leave. 80 million seems like the price that he would go for, 80 to 85 million, to a Barca or a Bayern, who are both looking to strengthen the left wing. But I don't know. I don't know where he will end up. They still have to get money for Nunez. They'll probably get 50 to 60 million for him, which is kind of surprising based on how he's been the last couple of years. But that's just how Liverpool operates. They're one of the best selling clubs in the Prem, in the world. Honestly, some of the prices they get for some of their players, even a player like Kwanzaa for 40 million, who I think could be quality. He hasn't really proven it yet, and you still get more money than Arsenal's ever gotten for a player, is kind of insane to me. But Newcastle pushing for Wisa now. I think it's a good deal. I think it's good depth. You're able to hold on to Isak. You have Gordon off the left. Wisa could play off the left. He could play down the middle. You have Alanga off the right now. Now just go and push for a center back, a quality center back. I heard they went for Scalavini, but he rejected, or Atalanta rejected it. I don't know if they've gone back in for him, but they should go and try and pick up a Prem-proven center back. I don't know why they're not in the race for Gehi. I think he also rejected them and probably prefers to go to Liverpool, but there still are a couple of players that you could go for to strengthen the defense, especially with Shard getting old and not really being as good. Botman, who's just so injury prone, and I guess Dan Burn, but he's not a top quality Champions League level player that you want in this team, because that's the biggest thing, is that Newcastle are serious. They want to compete for top four consistently. They want to compete for the title consistently, and while competing in the Champions League, which was their biggest problem last time around, they didn't have the depth. They were put in a tough group, and now that obviously that system isn't around anymore, where they can't get put in a group with PSG and Dortmund, and I forget who else was in it, but it was the group of death of that year. But they still need depth. They want to make runs in the cup competitions. Isak isn't exactly a clean cut player where he's not going to get injured. He's struggled with injuries in the past. We don't know if that will come back. And who do you really put in if he goes out? Wisa, I think, is a great option. 19 Premier League goals this year. Good player for Brentford. Experienced too. 28 years old. And I think it's a great move for them. The only problem is Manchester United now have put in a £70 million bid for Bryan Mbeumo. 65 plus 5 in add-ons. That was a rumored fee months ago when they first went in for him. Obviously, these talks have dragged out a lot. And he's been expected to go. He wants Manchester United, but it's just about getting the deal done. United don't want to be taken as the same team that's so easily pushed in the transfer window, valuing Antony years ago at 35 to 40 million and then buying him for 90 later in the window. They don't want to be like that. They want to be a serious club. They want to go back to where they were, and I'm not saying they're going to. I still think they're far from it, but getting a player like Mbeumo in, who's experienced but still has time left in him, I think he's 25 or 26 years old, can score you goals, can create, pair him alongside Acuna, a Bruno Fernandes, and maybe get a striker up top like a Mateta, I think that could be a really good team that pushes for Europe. They still obviously have their holes, but with now this Mbeumo bid coming in and likely to be accepted, what does this mean for Wisa? Does this mean his price is going to go up? Maybe they're asking for 35 to 40 million. Now they're going to be asking for 60 to 50 million. I don't know, but I think Newcastle has to act fast. Seems like they're going to keep Isak, which is great for them. But you have to get this Wisa deal done. Brentford are obviously missing players. They've lost their coach. They lost their captain. They're losing probably their best player in Mbeumo, and now Wisa too. I don't think they wanted to get rid of both of them, but it seems like that's what's on the cards now. And you can't really do anything about it if you're a club like Brentford. No disrespect to them, but down to this huge club with Pole, they're not competing for Europe. And I wouldn't be surprised if they go down this year, losing this many people. And it's kind of tough. It's tough for them. There's competition now. I mean, you kind of expect the teams at the bottom half of the table, the three teams that came up, to go back down, but you never know with these teams. You never know with a Leeds or Sunderland, teams that are consistently Premier League teams back in the day, not as much recently. So it's gonna be hard for them. They're gonna want to get their money's worth if they're gonna get rid of these players. As for Newcastle, great deal for them. Get it done, strength and depth. And for Liverpool, they could still land Isak. I still think bringing in Ekitike strengthens their front line. Obviously they're missing Jota now, which is terrible. So they're going to probably go for another striker. I wouldn't be surprised if they lose Nunez and Diaz. They're going to need to bring in 2 or 3 attackers. I wouldn't be surprised if they push hard for Rodrigo. I still think Bayern and Liverpool are probably the 2 favorites to land a player like Rodrigo now, especially now. And then maybe an Arsenal or a Man City following behind them. It's scary. It's scary if you have Rodrigo, Ekitike, Salah in the front line. If they were able to get Isak, Rodrigo, and Salah, it's probably the best front 3 in the world, honestly. Better than PSG, better than Barca, who were the 2 best attacking teams last year. But Liverpool is serious, man. They want to win. This ownership has already invested a shitload of money in their 3 quality players that they brought in. And they're only going to do more. They bring in someone like Gehi, they bring in Rodrigo, they bring in Ekitike. This team is going to go back-to-back with Prems and might even pick up a Champions League along the way. So, yeah, talk to you guys more about more transfer news that comes out, and I'll see you in the next one.